America, my name is Osei-Frimpong. I come to you live every Thursday about this time. And today I want to talk to you about if we all just politics, if we all just get our money together, if we all just came up and did this, if we all just homeschooled our kids, if we all just, listen, any politics that starts with, any organizing that starts with, if we all just, is not real organizing, is not real politics, because it is kind of naive about the spiritual conditions of a we. Like skin color is a superficial we for black people. So if we all just as black people just did anything, then we could actually, if we pooled our money together, if we got our schools right, if we homeschooled our kids, if we all just started collectives and doing this, it doesn't, that's not, if we all just politics in an America that's bleached black institutional life and then remade it in its own form. People say no, HBCUs are black institutions. HBCUs aren't black institutions. HBCUs are what they are because that's what Mackenzie Scott, Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, will fund. And they will not be anything that Mackenzie Scott won't fund. So any black we that depends on Mackenzie Scott's dollars isn't just a we, it's Mackenzie Scott in blackface, right? So there is no if we all just politics that is actually serious about the issue. It's kind of like a lot of these kids programs. There are a lot of kids programs in the black community, programs for children. And those programs are scams because you focus on the children because it takes 15 years for you to realize that the program won't work. And so you get your money, and then 15 years later, when the kid has the same outcome or whatever, you could say well, I don't know what happened. We tried. We were just thinking about the kids. Just keep thinking about the kids. That's a great way to pass the buck. It's a con. If you don't have a program for 25-year-old black men, you don't have a program for 10-year-old black men. You just black boys. You just think you do and you talk like you do, but you're just trying to get some of that nonprofit quiche. All right, and I'm going to hit the opening and then tell you all about the if we all politics. If we all just get together, if we all just, it takes institutions. It takes institutions because we all don't agree on too much. Let me hit the beat.
To the beat, y'all.
Yeah. Sound good to me. Never change the ways for the world or the government. If I was the president, then I would state facts. You leave it up to me, I paint the White House black and ain't no future in your front.
To the beat, y'all.
Black people are not a spiritual, meaningful we. We are we are not internally formed, we're externally formed. Black people are black because white people needed black people to be black. The internal formation of the black identity, which could have actually been something if our families and business structures, if our business structures weren't bombed, if our families weren't incentivized to break up in all of these kind of nefarious ways. I'm reading a history of Jim Crow right now, and it just keeps coming up about how I wanted to go to school, but our school got burned down, or I wanted to go to school, but the way the sharecropping worked, I had to go to work instead. There are all of these just schemes that break up the black family, and you can't have a black community if we can't get our families right. If families are broken up, if we have single if we have single parents, a community full of single parents can't ever be an actual unified autonomous community itself because it's just not strong enough, right? So what America has done to black family life is undermine the conditions of any real community movement, because a community is a network of families. It's not something abstracted from the family. It's the best way to help children is to help parents help children, because there's a certain sort of governance and love that the parent is fit to give. So you got to educate the parent and then give resources to the parents, and that's how you help children, not just giving money to children or giving children freedom. That's ridiculous. They're children. Savages. I have 3 of them upstairs. I just heard them because they just got home. And pretty soon I suspect one will burst into here and then I'll cancel the show because that's how it is. But you have to understand that a real community is a spiritual unity that's not externally imposed by just like, we're black because the white people decided to terrorize black people and said that's us. No, it's an internal unity. There's no Haggadah. The Haggadah is the kind of the instructions and the text that's followed for a Seder, a Passover Seder, right? That is what forms the Jewish, and it's where Jewish people like remind themselves what it means to be Jewish, and even that they are Jewish, that they're not individuals, they are Jewish, and that means something, not just externally, but internally as a people. There is no black version of that. And if there were, it would have been written by like a white guy who wanted to keep black people subordinate, right? There isn't an institutional memory. There is no culture, a spiritual blackness that is deep enough to constitute a we. So there's no we that comes together in the absence of these institutions. And institutions take material resources generally diffused around so it takes a cultural unity, but also material resources generally diffused among the populace if it's going to be markedly democratic, because what happens when we disagree? Because a lot of black people are gonna disagree about the path forward, right? You need institutions and institutional parameters and secure funding to deal with that kind of disagreement, so we can work out what exactly we means. Because I suspect what I mean by we and what other people mean by we's are different we's. And there's no authoritative text handed down by on high that will tell us what we is. Apparently Alex Haley wanted to do that with Roots. Kind of create a black Haggadah, but it doesn't quite work that way, right? So insofar as we come together, it needs to be an internal unity that's the product of a culture. But since we don't control culture, and this is all by design, this isn't like some like deficiency, like congenital in black people. It's all by design. We underestimate how good the whites were at salting and bleaching any sort of autonomous institutional formations, including and most importantly, the family, for the hope of black community uplift. Because if you don't have strong black families, you don't have a black community. Everyone's still trying to figure out your family is part of yourself, right? So if you can't have yourself together, you can't join with other people who are together. So like by destroying the black family, they destroy the conditions for black community life. And anyone who tells you anything different is lying to you, right? And so, and you know, earlier it was explicit, the explicit war against black self-determination, where, you know, they would burn, you can't raise your family because they would burn your school, then they starved your school, and then they cut out the means, and then they pulled you away from school so that you would have to work, and then cut out the means for you to determine your family as you would see fit, because now you're too busy working. Everyone's too busy working. Black women are watching white women's kids so white women can, like, you know, enrich themselves and enrich their families, right? So like, not enrich, like culturally enrich. So there's, so the black family is like a target of abuse. And the most recent iteration in the neoliberal area is we found a way to get black families to break themselves up. Like, you know, people talk to me, but like, it's, once I realized that my mom wasn't alone in just divorcing my dad because kind of everyone was telling her to divorce. Like all the media was saying that if you're not happy, just divorce. And who's going to be happy if they're, you know, black and married to a black guy in the 80s, unless he earns. And so you're just pretty much telling black women to divorce their husbands. And, you know, you'll tell them what they want to hear, that it won't affect the kids. Of course it affects the kids. course it affects the kids. Like, that's ridiculous. You're taking away a whole other person that loves them. And, the more I think about it, especially the more I raise my own 3 kids, fathers are important. Man, fathers are the game. Even like, fathers are the difference. And maybe later it'll be mothers, and maybe it used to be mothers for some reason. But I think in this generation, good fathers are the difference for daughters or sons, man. Like, you need a good father. Especially if if you're not on the right. Right? If you're on the left, you need a good father because liberal women are a little bit dicey with respect to what needs to be done to create a responsible, competitive American. So fathers are definitely important. I was watching a little bit of college basketball, and there some of these white girls were actually playing pretty good college basketball. The Paige Beckers, she's like, I was like, she's got something around her that says that actually she's been around a lot of black people. There's something about the way she talks and the way she smiles that she's like, there's a killer just a little bit inside of her. But she kind of pulls it off and smiles. Actually reminds me of a Young Magic, with that same kind of intensity, but behind a smile, and just probably is very obnoxious to be with, to kind of to be on a team with, but still is a killer. And so I Googled her, and it turns out she was raised by her dad, who was a basketball player, and took that seriously. And so, yeah, dads are important, not just LeVar Ball and Richard Williams, but just we told black women to underestimate the importance of fathers, and that was all part of the strategy to destroy make kind of feckless and non-threatening black children, black men and women. Right, so that was all a scam. I'm probably going to lose some donations for that. So go ahead and go to www.funkyacademic.com and kick in $5, $15, or $50 a month, because nobody's going to tell you how important black fathers are, but they're really important. And the only reason we don't tell you that is because we want black people to not be particularly potent. Right. And that's the only reason. That's the only reason that single parenthood was marketed to black families. Like not the only reason, but it was one of the reasons. One of the reasons it was so effectively marketed was because we realized that would just be another strategy to tear up black families, and torn up black families make an impotent black people, because all communities start with the family. If you try to do an end run around the family, if you say we can make strong black communities without somehow securing black nuclear families, you're just falling for the con. You're going to get eaten by people who have their community as networked families who are all kind of competent and yeah. So I'll just say that fathers are important, and there is no if we all just, because we are all not on the same page, and there are no institutions, both spiritual and material, to help us work out to be on the same page. Right? So anyone who's saying, well, if we all just blah, 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 is just giving you cap. And there are hard limits to what an individual do. Oprah can't even get leaded pipes in unleaded pipes in Flint, Michigan, or Detroit. There are limits to what individuals can do, even if you're very, very rich individuals. Oprah doesn't even own. It's not like she owns it it's she's a partner. She's got partners with real money, which means they're white, right? So she might be a majority owner, but she doesn't even outright own herself. And so, because owning a production company is expensive, and she doesn't have it like that. She doesn't have Bloomberg money. She's got Oprah money. And that's a lot different than Bloomberg money, right? And I suspect Bloomberg owns Bloomberg. It's not. I don't even think it's a publicly traded company. I'd have to check that. Don't. Yeah, or maybe it is a publicly traded company. I don't know, but you have to understand. Oh, I think Zuckerberg still owns Facebook. Facebook is publicly traded, but I think he's got like a significant number of majority shares. Anyway, there's not a spiritual or material conditions for Black people to be a we. We happen to be a we because of shared lineage that was imposed upon us by the whites, right? Not because we were allowed to like actually autonomously emerge with our own robust identity that's untouched by the overdetermination of the whites. We have the inklings of that, and that's why they get stamped out. If Black autonomous function were really harmless, like it wouldn't be under attack. But now anytime there's like a real authentic Black movement, like for example, the ADOS movement, I'm a fan of ADOS. I hope they keep doing what they're doing. They get stamped out or distorted, right? So we need to think about what are the cultural, spiritual, and material conditions of actually having a we, which means we need institutions and places and ways to work out disagreement, because we're not always going to be on the same page, and like you shouldn't have to be. And we need the means of spiritual and ideological production, which include this show, to help us get on the same page and then work it out from there, right? So if you support my efforts in giving, the community the spiritual and kind of intellectual internal reasons to become a real community, not just one that's like externally cobbled together, because a lot of people think of the ghetto. If Black people had an internal sense, the hood wouldn't be something you escaped from. Your aspiration wouldn't be to go to a suburb, right? So that's like the idea that the aspiration is to go to a private school or a suburb outside of Black people. That means like the Black identity is an external identity. You want good Black stuff. We want good Black stuff, not escape, right? So yeah, I just want to warn you about all of these people who start community uplift programs if we all just, because actually the we is an artifact. It's something that's manufactured. And it's something that ought to be manufactured, but it takes not just time, it takes kind of cultural, spiritual, and material resources to manufacture the we. I mean, the Nation of Islam, like, it's not as corrupted as it is. It like actually had the spiritual aspect to create a we that like something like even the NAACP lacked, right? Or like fundamentally lacked. It had an internal narrative and a myth that like understood what it was to be Black and understood what it was to be white with their technology and their devilishness, and like created a community from that. Like that's not a feckless way to actually try to create a we. Like there are other problems with the NOI, and including like it didn't have the material resources, so it had to like start working with dubious government agencies, and like, there are other problems. But like it actually understood that there was a spiritual component to what it means to be a we. And if you try to do that without family, if you try to do that without like actually securing the conditions for a family, or securing the conditions for like an understanding of what it means to be Black against hostile interlopers, then like I don't think Black is a skin color. I think it's a lineage. Black in the United States isn't a skin color. It's not like, so Obama wasn't Black. Michelle was. But it's a lineage. It's a lineage. My dad, not black. My mom, black. Right? You can open it up and be Pan-Africanist and talk about, well, the global blackness of the... No, in the United States, to be black is to come from a certain lineage that was terrorized. And that's the community that like needs to spiritualize, which Alex Haley tried to do with Roots, spiritualize and remember and make whole from that lineage of terrorism. Because that lineage of terrorism is why like we don't have, why black people make bad decisions with respect to relationships, with respect to priorities, with respect to all of that comes down to the lineage of terrorism. Look, if you could tell yourself that the single family household, the rate of single family household in black single family households in the United States would be the same if not for slavery or Jim Crow, hollowing out our kind of immune system to such bad, like such an untoward liberalization of the family. You could tell yourself that the single family black household rates would be the same without Jim Crow and without slavery. But I think you'd be lying. Slavery and Jim Crow hollowed out our cultural institutions. And then on that field, on that raised field, burnt to the ground, like a liberalism that told women that they don't need husbands, like to raise children, like was just the next escape. And that's it. You know, I've done other videos on the cunning of liberalism and neoliberalism. And one of the cunnings of neoliberalism is that it gets you to voluntarily do things that are not in your interest. You don't have to have slaveholders whipping you. You will whip yourself for master. And you don't have to have like external forces ripping your family apart. You'll go down and volunteer and call it self-love, self-pleasuring. You'll go down and volunteer to break up your family and then feel good about it. You'll be surprised in 15 years when your kids aren't what you thought they were, and maybe because maybe they could have used a daddy, but you know, it'll feel good, and the media will tell you, you did the right thing, girl. He was abusive. And it turns out that was all just, it all works for the strategy of destroying entire black communities. All right. So if you learned anything from this video, it's that any politics that starts with, if we all just, is BS, is not serious, because the cultural conditions for actually establishing and working through and like formulating a we that could all just are like sizable. So your politics needs to be a little bit more kind of cunning than that. Look, and people say like, well, the Black Panthers did it. People don't understand how the Black Panthers really ended. They ended with Bobby Seale running for mayor of Oakland and losing. So the whole might of the Black Panthers like couldn't get Bobby Seale elected mayor because he was a Black Panther. And so instead of Bobby Seale, you get all of these like black people who aren't about, you know, black people. And, you know, I don't think Obama was about black people. I think he's pretty much said he wasn't about black people. Kamala Harris said she's not about black people. It's amazing. You can go to HBCUs, you can line dance and do the whole thing and still not be about black people, like their material and spiritual uplift. So thank you for your time. I'll see you on Monday with free game. Free game. Monday's show is going to be about how you should think about relationships. The guys should think about relationships as a byproduct. And that's the difference between women and men going into serious relationships. Women, they don't really have to think about it. They just kind of have to be pretty, and guys kind of come. Guys have to say like, all right, so I got to do my career, got to do my studies, and I have to, you know, figure out how to get a wife. Well, actually, you need to think of it more like women and just kind of ignore that aspect and think about the relationship as a byproduct, because I think that'll create more successful relationships. Because, you know, if you don't think about the relationship as a byproduct, and women will get you confused about this, because they'll say like, no, you need to woo me and do all that stuff. You don't have to do any of that. And, you know, they'll like you more if you don't do any of that. They'll respect you more if you don't do any of that. And you don't want a woman who's going to like expect you to do all of that. You need a woman who's going to expect you to be about your business. All right, thank you for your time. And I will see you on Monday.